Thank you, Freak. Definitely a better game there by Gambit. They looked a little bit more into their normal form. So we have to give them a little bit of credit for bouncing back, as we said they should be able to do after getting, thrown that curveball in the first game and taking that first loss. Something I do want to look at immediately, though, is the champion select. As we said, we were looking for some things to kind of flip-flop around. We actually saw both teams go with a fairly late game scaling comp this time, which, when you have that Cog versus the Trist, I feel like SKT, their playstyle didn't quite match it. They played a little too aggressively from behind, given the late game comp.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest thing into how the game quickly spiraled out of control was the mid lane matchup, in which Syndra can bully Zed early game, but she took exhaust, meaning that she was preparing to go really, really late and let Zed get away with a relatively easy laning phase. Had she taken Ignite, she would have gotten multiple kills in mid lane, as we saw, and just would have been able to put a lot more pressure and be in just a better commanding position in the early game. Because all you need to do against that team comp that Gambit had, keep Zed down, then group as 5, and you have a massive wombo combo team comp, which isn't really like, it's just Kog'Maw Syndra, right? You can't really go into that with Vi. Like, you're going to get killed if you're Vi into that. And then what happened was Syndra wasn't able to get that lead because of the time she tried to kill mid lane, she had exhaust, and she flashed forward while Vi was in front of her and gave 1 kill to Vi. And once Vi gets going, she was able to snowball multiple places around the map, middle again, basically, and get Zed further ahead. And when Vi gets ahead, she can also do a really quick dragon. Where we saw Gambit take the first dragon, I think, like at 13 minutes, which is valued pretty highly. And with the 2-0 Zed, Zed's able to just go rampant, and there's no threat of him getting killed because Syndra has exhaust, and Kha'Zix went for E-Evolution first. So he's just banking on his team setting him up, and it just never got to that point.
Dominate, we talked a lot about the mid matchup while we were watching it back here, and something else that was brought up was the idea of holding on to that Syndra ultimate, because he was very willing to throw it out to try and force the Zed out of lane. But I want to get your thoughts on, as a jungler, you kind of mentioned that holding on to your ult actually for when the enemy jungler comes to gank can be rather useful.
Yeah, I think that it's smarter in that situation to save your ult for all-in potential rather than just using it for chunk. Excuse me. If you use it for chunk in that situation, you're not... You don't have any threat. Like, the Vi can dive onto you, and there's no threat that you can kill him. As a jungler, when you gank a Syndra, it's always in the back of your mind, like, okay, I can get one shot. If I engage in the wrong spot, like, I'll be trading 1-for-1 versus Syndra. So I think the Syndra should have been looking to, like, chunk him with Qs, chunk him with E's, but save the ultimate for when Vi comes. And when Vi comes, just all in the Vi, just try to get a kill and trade 1-for-1.
I also do actually want to jump all the way back to the beginning of the game, because we had a pretty interesting level 1 kind of shenanigans, couple kills traded back and forth, buffs being stolen and things like that. Dominate, I know you wanted to speak to this.
Yeah, there was a really unique opportunity for that game for Gambit to get a 4 buff. It was really, really possible. And all they needed to do was, after Gambit had forced them off the red, the Vi needed to back off immediately after he got the blue, because that's a stealth mission. When you're going onto the weak side of your map, you don't have coverage from your duo lane. So they're banking on getting that blue before the bot lane can rotate, or in that case, their top. But before the duo lane can rotate to you, you need to be able to get the buff and get out. And if they get that buff, they can re-rotate over to the enemy red that's still up, and that's their strong side. If they have just Thresh waiting there, the Kha'Zix can't actually start the buff, and you'll get the enemy red, the enemy blue, you already have your red, and then you just back off to your blue. You have a 4 buff start, and that will essentially end the game.
Yeah, we saw at that point, too, that Vi had the Vault Breaker, so it would have been possible for her to go right back over that blue wall and get to safety much easier than getting caught in the river there. Although, we have to say it was a pretty fantastic flash by Nami there in the river, blocking the Vault Breaker to secure that kill. Now, I want to move a little bit further down into the game and talk about the fact that SK Prime, as we said, played super aggressively with this team composition when they got behind. I feel like that might be kind of the first telltale signs of nerves, thinking that you have to make a play here in order to get, when there's a giant prize on the line here, the LCS.
I think they're kind of failing to take into consideration what their team comps do instead of just... like we saw the first game, they took the exhaust on Orianna. Perfectly understandable, right? Ori versus Zed. Good matchup to take to take exhaust on. Like, you're going to be needing it in the team fights later. But Syndra versus Zed, that's definitely not one that you're going to need that later on. And like, it was just very weird to see, even when Kha'Zix fell really far behind, he just kept trying to make plays and plays and plays. And he went for the E evolution. To me, that's not so much, maybe it is nerves, but it's like a failing to see like the power spike that you're having, what you need to be evolving. Like, for instance, that game, had Kha'Zix gone for a W evolution first, he would have been able to just play a lot more passive, protect dragons, and just be able to stall the game out longer, because that's ultimately all you need. You needed to keep the Zed down and make sure that your team comp just doesn't lose any more objectives, because you lose the turrets, you lose map control, and against Vi, Thresh, Zed, you're going to get picked off. They just needed to prevent towers from dying as early as possible, stall them out until you get the Kog'Maw late enough that Kog'Maw with Nami can pretty much just walk around and just chunk everyone, kill everyone with Syndra to protect, and perhaps a Kha'Zix W evolution. It's very difficult to come in and have a safe engage into that. So just a failure in the skill evolution, like summoner spells, and then it just went downhill from there. Keep trying to make him plays with not having any advantage.
All that being said, we have seen Tristana played in both games, played very well. In fact, in that game, 13-0 and 6 on Tristana for Kristlin there. So, Dominate, I'm going to have two questions. The first one, obviously in that bot lane, Tristana is going to be a pretty contested pick. Do you see bans falling on that, or literally just we're going to trade it every game back and forth until one of the teams can outplay it?
I personally think it's going to be traded. I think a team's going to try to get an OP, and like let's say the purple side team will give up one OP and try to get Trist and then something else that they value, and that's how the ban pick phase will benefit them most. If they ban it, then they could just be giving up an OP for nothing, and then there's no real benefit coming out of your pick ban phase. But I think if you just play smart, you opt to early rotation the Trist on purple side, I think that you can just get it every time.
I agree with that. I think that the Trist will most likely be traded, and especially since they picked Kog'Maw last game. They picked Kog into Trist, which is a perfectly fine matchup. And in the late game, Kog'Maw does a lot more damage than Tristana, seeing as he also has longer range with his Bio-Arcane Barrage activated. So I think the team showed that they're comfortable at least picking it. Maybe not playing it, but they're comfortable taking the Kog'Maw into Tristana, which is a fine matchup. So until we see that develop late game, maybe Gambit is not comfortable taking the Kog'Maw into Trist and having a hyper carry late game, which I thought the first game they made the mistake of taking the Lucian into that, but we'll see how the game pans out later on.
All right, and then the second question, given that you're both junglers, was going to be about those jungle matchups, because we've actually seen quite a few come out. Kog, Vi, let's see here, Elise, and Fizz, right? Yep. So we've seen 4 different picks. Do we expect to see more? Do we expect them to test each other's jungle champion pools, because we haven't seen Nunu come out? The Lee Sin has been banned away, so who knows if we'll have the opportunity to see that one. Do we expect to see some testing there when it comes to the jungle champion pools?
I think this next game will not have any new champs, because I feel like the junglers' second game didn't really have that big of an impact, and the first and only the Fizz had like a relatively good impact into the game. And we see Lee Sin be constantly banned out by Gambit, so I don't think they're going to drop that ban anytime soon. And they're not known, like Gambit's jungler and SKP's jungler aren't known for playing like a new champion, so I don't see them picking that necessarily. And seeing as how the games aren't necessarily revolving around the jungle pick, I don't think it's a good idea to start banning junglers away. So I could just see them picking the same things that have worked for them in Game 1 and Game 2 for the teams respectively.
All right. We'll see when we get into Champion Select for those. However, we're going to quickly jump to a video feature. The professional gaming community is small, and even the pros have players and teams that they're rooting for. So we caught up with a few to see who they're hoping will get a shot at the big leagues.
One of the players that I actually like a lot and that I would not hold against if he got into the LCS is actually Mashed.
I think that don't match me and Sheep deserve it. Now that they're together, I think they mesh really well. They're really friendly, so that helps a lot too.
I'm really grateful for the people that said that they hope I make it back in.
That's what keeps me going, always playing well and just being yourself.
In particular, I would say Porpoise Pops is a good player, and he's also an old teammate of mine. So I would actually like to see him make it in the LCS, just not taking our spot for it.
We're good friends, so if we do win against Complexity, I want Bubba to make it back into the LCS.
I think Porpoise Pops is a really good Zoiki jungler that hasn't really seen that much light yet. If they do manage to qualify, then he's going to be a jungler to watch out for.
I actually have some friends in SK Prime. I know some of them, they're really cool guys.
There's some guys who are playing really good, like Saxi from Unicorns of Love or Smithy J.
I just hope that some of my friends in Europe get back in and finally get the recognition they deserve. Everyone can deserve it, but they have to show that they are worthy to be an LCS and beat an LCS team.
Now, both of you, being pro players, I have to ask, are there any challenger players that you're looking at that you really hope have the opportunity to make it into the LCS?
I think the one we talked about before earlier after talking about the CLG and Chris Academy games, Bunny Fufu. I mean, we know when he came into the LCS last split, he was doing good work, and we see that consistently throughout the Challenger series. And, I mean, it's not just Thresh. Honestly, his positioning in some of the games, his ultimates have been really top-notch, and I'd like to see a player like that get the opportunity to stay in the LCS for more than one split.
All right. Dominate, from what I've heard from you about Bunny Fufu, I have to imagine you're going to go with the same person.
Yeah, Bunny is one of my favorite players I ever played with. He is this, like, this God-given talent to play support that I haven't seen in anyone that I've ever played with. Like, he doesn't have as good game sense, which kind of just comes with experience, but his straight-up mechanics and his prediction and his skill shots are so next level that if he gets to the same level as the other professional NA supports in terms of game sense, he's going to be an absolute beast. He'll be the best support in NA.
All right. Well, he may still have an opportunity through the expansion tournament, and then who knows if any LCS teams will be looking at him. But we are going to head off the Rift while the teams set up for Game 3 between Gambit Gaming and SK Prime. We'll be right back with more of our Spring Promotion Tournament. Stay tuned. Oh, yeah.
Around Diamond does not have Vault Breaker, I believe. He's gonna have to flash. Z's in there. He does it. Wow, Zaitan blocks it.
The flash from Zaitan to stunt the Vault Breaker.
Looks for Kick, is flashed away by Diamond. Now who's going to win this fight? Kuban in the front, taking up everything. They pick up on the Fox. They get Smitty J as well. Gets stunned up, but you know what? Diamond and Edward just taking blows as they knock everyone else down. 3 kills picked up already. Z's is staying alive. In comes Zed, though. Deathmark is massive damage. Z's will fall, and they're going to get Watt the Fox as well. Kickus does not get anything done. 3 for 0 in this battle. Nick stays alive. 4 kills picked up.